Today would have been the birthday of my mother-in-law, Jennifer Kennedy, but she tragically died just before Christmas last year. But throughout her life, she was a tireless defender of the rights of those who were browbeaten and downtrodden by our deliberately skewed and corrupt society. And as she was also a strongly loyal member of the Welsh community, I think it's a fitting tribute to her on this day to open my speech with some fine words of a great Welshman, the poet and activist Raymond Williams, who said, "To be truly radical is to make hope possible rather than despair convincing." And following on from yet another recession, a Labour-inspired recession on this occasion, to go with previous Conservative-driven collapses in the economy, and following on from the dreadful failure of the Copenhagen summit, the last chance to save the environment, we were told, people now need to be given hope. And so the task is set for us. We must make hope possible. We must be truly radical. Now, some may be concerned or worry about that, but they should not. For you see, to be truly radical, we need to do just one small thing: to tell the truth. To tell the truth about how so many of the ills that plague our human society have their roots in the way that we treat animals. To tell the truth about the reality of those animals' lives under our exploitation and how it is intolerable to allow it to continue. And to tell the truth about the profound significance of protecting our environment to secure a future for everyone. And you know, it's remarkable to consider how much less daunting the challenge appears and how much more possible and visible hope becomes when you know that you have the truth on your side. But still, let no one doubt the measure of the task that is asked of us. There will be hostility to our proposals. There will be opposition to our call for change. There will be derision, indeed, for our daring to even ask for what we want. And what do we want? We want nothing less than to change an entire system. We know that a mere tinkering around the edges, as suggested by our major political parties, will not do. There is more, much more, that we must do. And so we make the call to rethink a whole philosophy that currently satisfies only a few at the expense of the many, and to redirect resources to those who need them most, not to those who already have most and need more least of all. And we make the call to reward those whose contributions are currently unheralded, hidden and ignored. Those who, for example, work in the caring professions, providing vital services to the powerless, the vulnerable and the dispossessed, and not to give even more reward to those whose work is socially useless and who flatter their own genius by conjuring up ever more complex financial structures that strain and burden the world with yet more debt. So we make the call for real radical change. And there is no good reason why we should not. We have nothing to lose ourselves by telling the truth, and everything to gain for those who need someone, anyone, to be honest on their behalf about what we are doing to them. I talk, of course, about the animals in our world, whether imprisoned in our farms and laboratories or hemmed in, confined into ever smaller and ever more damaged habitats in the wild. Wherever they are, they deserve someone to dare to be truly radical and to tell the truth on their behalf. Not because they have no voice of their own. They have a voice, and they do use it when we cause them fear and suffering. But too many in our society have made themselves willfully deaf to their cry of anguish, their scream of pain. Let us therefore raise our voices for them and make ourselves heard. Some will say to us, no, don't do it. It's not time. The world is not ready to hear what you've got to say. Don't do it. You're asking for too much. But really, the world is never ready for radical change. We could spend an eternity on the sidelines as bystanders, idling away our years, patiently tapping our foot as we wait for the right moment before we step out and meekly ask, is it okay now? No, we must be stronger than that. We should not shrink from nor shirk our responsibility to tell the truth now. It seems difficult, almost impossible even, but that is no reason at all not to do it. In fact, it's exactly the reason why we should do it, and history shows us why. It may seem obvious and simple to us now, as though the whole world was in easy agreement with her, but when Mrs. Emmeline Pankhurst stepped out to challenge the outrageous misogyny of her age, which brutally exploited the female half of this country's population, she was met with profound antagonism, hounded by her own government, harassed by the forces of law and order, her liberty constantly under threat. Her call for change was a difficult call that was vehemently resisted by the powerful. But she made the call anyway, and she was right. And it may seem simple and obvious to us now, as though the whole world was standing behind her in fulsome support. But when Mrs. Rosa Parks got on the bus in Montgomery, Alabama, on the 1st of December 1955, and refused to give up her seat when she was told to, but stayed sitting down where she was not supposed to, she was under the immense burden of legalised oppression. She found herself under arrest and surrounded on all sides by open hostility. But she did what she did anyway, and she was right. And it may seem obvious and simple to us now, as though the whole world had already agreed that he would be a hero of our times. But when a young man, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., stepped forward to support Rosa Parks in calling for an end to segregation, to put aside racial discrimination for all time, he was met with hysterical, intense, and too often violent opposition. Millions of people hated him, and they hated everything that he stood for. His was not an easy journey, but he made the journey anyway. And he was right. We are fortunate then that we could raise ourselves up onto the shoulders of these giants who were there before us and be carried forward by their hard-won victories. We do not face the same dangers that confronted them, and we can learn from the message that they gave to the world. A message that says that the truth will out and the truth will win. So, we can embrace hope, and we can make hope the core of our message. We do not need to listen to, and in fact we can safely ignore, the doom-laden, scaremongering lies of a Labour or Conservative administration. History has already decided on their incompetence, their impotence, and their irrelevance.